You are safe only on holy ground. None of us will violate that law. It's tradition.
Well, introducing someone to the Highlander franchise is like explaining a new board game. The game is a long, forced conflict among immortals where they have to duel and take one another's head. The prize is ultimate power and mortality, and the rules are some standard do's and don'ts. Okay, in hindsight, it's a pretty dark board game to teach someone. Anyway, if we open the rulebook for the Immortals' millennia-long fights, there are a couple, and one of them is that Immortals can't fight on holy grounds. But why? I mean, there should be justification to the rules, right? We're not 6 anymore, and I know the pet isn't on vacation, but is dead. Oh, how I wish he was on vacation. Okay, I'm losing myself, but I have a job to do. In this video, I'll be digging up all possible theories as to why exactly Immortals can't fight on any holy ground.
I know the rules. You and me. Now.
See, in the Highlander universe, the origin of Immortals is unknown. They just happen to be special people born with the power of immortality, which is triggered by their first death. But we don't know how and why that happens. Thankfully, in the theatrical cut of Highlander 2, The Quickening, we got a short-lived explanation. According to that version, Immortals came from a planet called Zeist, which had its own timeline, administrative system, rules, and a leader. Also, in this world, Ramirez had powers of sorcery which helped him create an everlasting bond with Connor. Once Ramirez, Connor, and their faction started opposing the tyrannical leader of Zeist, General Katana, they were exiled from their homeworld and sent to Earth to live as immortals, and were compelled to battle one another until only one remained. The victor would then face a final choice, whether to stay on Earth as immortal, or return to Zeist with all past crimes forgiven.
Therefore, I sentence you both to the same exile, an exile into the future.
If we stick to this story, then it must have been a general and his minions who came up with the rules of the game. It's possible that General Katana, no matter how cruel he was, wanted to revere the places of worship or was bound to do so according to whatever religious manuscripts the people of Zeist followed. As a result, the Holy Ground became a sanctuary for immortals, where they could be safe from being attacked and killed by another immortal. Now, by holy ground, they basically mean any place people considered sacred, like cathedrals, churches, chapels, cemeteries, monasteries, or Native American sacred land. And as the series went on, the meaning shifted a bit. The first movie treated it as more of a tradition, while in Highlander 2, The Quickening, it was established as the Golden Rule. Again, in Highlander series, fighting on the holy ground is seen as something shameful, which means it was considered taboo, and violating it resulted in dishonor. By the way, mortals are not bound by this rule, and they can behead any immortal on holy grounds. Remember how the hunters killed Darius on a holy ground in the Highlander series? But if any immortal did so, there would be catastrophic results. For instance, in the episode Little Tin God from Highlander series, Joe Dawson talked about a legend where the rule was broken. In AD 79 in Pompeii, two immortals fought each other to death in the Temple of Apollo, which was said to have caused the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and the eventual destruction of the city. There are many other examples of how immortals started fighting on holy ground, only to be stopped by furious warnings from nature. In Highlander 3, The Sorcerer, Cain did attack Connor inside a Buddhist shrine, but had to stop when a sudden thunderous surge of energy rocked the room. He realized he was violating the rules, and if he went ahead with beheading Connor there, the consequences would be horrible. It happened to Duncan once. In an audio story named Kurgan Rising, Duncan accidentally killed the immortal Justino Alvarez on holy ground, which led to the Kurgan spirit returning and infecting his mind. Even the vilest immortals like Kurgan try not to let themselves lose on holy grounds. So we're familiar with the rule and what happens on breaking it, and to an extent, who created it. Now let me explain the possible justification behind this. One idea is that immortality itself is like a cosmic joke, something that goes against the natural cycle of birth and death. If that cycle was created by gods, then immortals are basically breaking the rules just by existing. Because of that, the gods might resent them, and when immortals step onto sacred ground, it's seen as a violation. That's why the reaction is believed to be so severe. Or if we consider immortals to be godlike beings themselves, which is not far-fetched given the unseen force that draws them toward each other during the gathering, then fighting on holy ground can be seen as an act of disrespect toward the domains of other higher beings. These beings may exist on a similar level, but follow different ideologies, making such confrontations a violation of their sacred space. On the other hand, they might be seen as blemishing their own homes. In fact, in Highlander, the role-playing game, it treated the holy ground rule as something really old. Back then, a lot of immortals were basically worshipped like gods and had their own temples, so the whole no fighting on holy ground thing probably started as a simple rule: don't attack someone in their own place. Also, fighting on holy ground can be dangerous and unpredictable. We know about the Quickening, right? When one immortal kills another, they absorb their power in a massive surge of energy. However, if this happens in a place like ancient sacred sites that are already believed to be connected to strong natural forces, things may not go as expected. The quickening could spiral out of control, turning into a violent explosion that endangers everyone nearby, and we know for a fact that places like temples and monasteries are often filled with mortals. The possibility is that the energy is absorbed by the ground itself, leaving the victor with nothing. Maybe that's exactly what happened when Darius was killed on a holy ground. The idea was explored in a fan-made Highlander RPG inspired by Vampire the Masquerade. Since there was nothing to gain, as in no quickening to absorb, the holy ground naturally became a safe zone, and over time, the Immortals entered into a mutual understanding not to fight there. Or maybe, the resulting quickening would be so colossal that it could cause an overload. In my opinion, that's what led to the collapse of the cave when Cain killed Nakano, who had a Buddhist statue nearby, marking the cave as holy ground. Thus, Cain and his followers being trapped in the cave, which effectively removed them from the game, was a sign of what an energy spike could lead to when the holy ground rule is violated. Now, if we step out of the zone of mysticism, there are a few practical justifications to this rule as well. We're talking about people who are doomed for an entire eternity to keep seeking out other immortals and kill them. I mean, it's like you have forever to find Pokemon, and there's this unknown pull that keeps drawing you back into playing Pokemon Go. Of course, a breakup is on the cards, but at some point, even the biggest fan of the game would want a timeout. For Immortals, the Holy Ground was a safe refuge, a place where they can retreat to when they become weary of the endless chasing and hunting. The last option is refraining from taking someone's head on the Holy Ground is a code of conduct. You know, something like an honor system. And frankly, the series has contradicted itself at times. For example, they started showing that Immortals can fight on Holy Ground as long as it doesn't cause any serious damage. We saw Keem's son challenging Duncan MacLeod to a friendly match on a Holy Ground, but since there weren't any bloody consequences, it was fine. That reiterates the idea that refraining from fighting in sacred places is actually more like a customary practice than a codified rule. And when an immortal chooses to decapitate another in a shrine, it goes against their values. In short, it's an internalized morality. So when Jacob Kell did slaughter immortals in the sanctuary, which was at first believed to be a holy ground, there were no repercussions. Sure, the makers tried to keep the rule rooted in magic and clarified that the sanctuary wasn't really a holy ground, and also mentioned that since Kell's victims couldn't defend themselves, it wasn't a fair fight, per se. However, if you think about it, it seems like the Watchers might play a role in continuing this propaganda to protect the places where mortals prey. Then again, there is indeed a way to see this rule as a mystical one, over being a man-made concept, something that Mother Nature forbids, because as discussed above, there are tons of incidents where the world itself stops two immortals from beheading one another on a holy ground. So if we link natural calamities to acts of godly wrath, then this rule surely checks out as something otherworldly. Alright guys, that's all for today. I hope the explanations will help a bit in understanding why Immortals follow this rule like a traditional action. I'm sure you guys have your own theories about why this happens and what actually counts as holy ground. Do feel free to share them with us in the comments below. These just happen to be on the top of my head today. And if you liked the video, don't forget to like and share it with fellow Highlander fans, because honestly, it's a rabbit hole we all love going into. Speaking of rabbit holes, our channel is a good option because we've covered quite a few Highlander topics till now, starting from origins, entire lives, and some niche topics. How about a play, huh? I'll see you in the next one. Bye!